Say you were 5, what did you want to be as an adult?
When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be the quarterback of NFL football team. Quickly diminished by the fact that I had very little athletic ability.
When did you know you were going to start lying?
A lot of people were telling my eventual co-founder the same thing about me. Like, hey, you've got to meet this guy Shardule. He's doing his MBA.
So this is the audience question. Hello everyone, welcome to the Careers Not Ladders podcast, where we talk about unique paths of professional success and growth. Our guest today is Shardule Shah. I have known Shardule for 3 years now, and he's amazingly multi-talented and inspiration to many, including yours truly. And he has achieved a lot in his life already. But here's a quick summary, and I got a bio from your website, Shardule, but I tweaked it based on what I know about you. So he is CEO and founder of Lime Therapeutics, currently Harvard Blavatnik Fellow. It's a prestigious fellowship for Life Sciences Entrepreneurship at Harvard. Before starting up Lime, Shardule had impactful stints at Lucira Health and Roche Molecular Diagnostics. He has had impressive career there, and he has managed cross-functional global clinical operations and regulatory affairs teams for point-of-care diagnostic devices, including COVID-19 and influenza testing. Dr. Shah earned his PhD from Emory University in immunology, MBA from Harvard Business School, MS from University of Pennsylvania in cell biology, and BS from Case Western Reserve University in biochemistry. And obviously, I have known him on a more personal level. So I have known him as excelling as a husband to Ami and as a great dad to Sienna and Aro. I've seen him play violin, piano, and play tennis, that too left-handed. So he brings positivity to every room he enters. So Shardule, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like I was thinking about who should I bring in, and I was thinking Shardule was one of my first picks. And I briefly mentioned your career already, and let's get into the recording.
Yeah.
So as I said, your career is far from being conventional. Did you ever envision that? Did you plan it out? And I would say let's just go way back. Let's say you were 5. What did you want to be as an adult? And how about when you were 15 and 25?
When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be the quarterback of an NFL football team. So that's what my dream was when I was 5. Quickly diminished by the fact that I had very little athletic ability. So that dream went away for the 5-year-old portion. When I was 15, I wanted to enter into the political realm. For example, wanting to be president of the United States. I thought that would be an extremely cool job. I loved U.S. history, and I loved the positive impact that I thought that political office could have on people. Transitioned to 25, and by that time I knew that my career would mainly be in the life sciences, but I truly did not know how that would manifest itself. And so all of these different steps so far, from 5 to 15 to 25, I've learned every step of the way. And to say that I have planned this out would be the most incorrect thing I could have possibly said. So it has just been a journey in which I keep trying to learn every step of the way.
Well, that's awesome, man. I think this podcast is dedicated to people like you. So this is not about getting out of college, get a consulting job and so on. So this is all about unconventional path. And your education history is also very unconventional. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You did 4 years of undergrad at Case Western.
Yeah.
2 years of grad school at UPenn, and then 1 year of some related work. Decided to do a PhD at Emory.
Yeah.
What was the mindset like? Did you have any doubts ever in your life? What am I doing there?
Yeah, I've had plenty of doubts along the way. And it, started in undergraduate at Case Western, where I truly did not know what I wanted to do when I graduated with my BS. I had tinkered a little bit with the pre-medical path, tinkered a little bit with the pre-law path, maybe thought about getting a job straight out of school. And eventually I settled in that I thought that deeper knowledge about a scientific field would be good for my career. And I thought that it would be good for me to prepare myself for a job. So that's why I engaged in graduate studies at UPenn. And there, I engaged in a program, and it turned out not to be the best fit for me. And I decided at that point that it would be better for me to transition out of the program. So I earned a master's degree in the program, and I took a gap year. But unlike many people's other gap years where they go traveling around the United States in like a van searching for themselves, I immersed myself more into the sciences. So I took a position for 1 year as a lab technician, and then I did a lot of soul searching at that point. And I said, I really want to get my PhD degree in the life sciences. And so that is what made me decide to apply to Emory and follow through with the degree. And there were many points along the way where I did doubt whether I could do this, but something within me kept me going. Or I had the best external support system in the world, starting with my wife. At that time we weren't married, but we were together. And of course, I also had my parents supporting me as well. So anytime that I had any kind of doubt about what my path ahead looked like, I either persevered or I was able to get some incredible support.
And how far along you were in your PhD when you figured out that this is the path, like immunology, oncology?
Yeah.
So how did you know that?
So I knew right away entering the PhD program. So we'll take it back to 2010 when I entered the program. I knew right away that I was not destined to become an academic professor. A good number of people with their PhD, they end up becoming professors at universities. That's kind of the default track. But I knew from that point that I always wanted to do something at the intersection of business and science. I didn't know what that was, frankly, but when I started the PhD program, I told my dissertation or thesis advisor that, hey, look, I am not going to be a professor like you. I just want to let you know from day one, because a lot of professors actually have problems with that. They only take people that want to become professors. But really, fortunately, my mentor, Dr. Larry Boyce at Emory, he was extremely understanding, and he said, this is your career path, and I'm going to set you up for success the best way that I can. So I knew from roughly the mid-20s, I really wanted to do something at the intersection of business and science. So getting the PhD allowed me to dive right in and think really strategically about a problem, and that has helped to propel me for the rest of my career so far.
Okay. And then you decide to do an MBA. And we'll come back to that topic we have for the MBA.
Sure.
But let's talk about right after your PhD. So you joined Lucira.
Yeah.
And then you were there for a few years. And let's talk about some of the biggest learnings from there.
Yeah. So right out of the PhD program, I had the wonderful opportunity to join Lucira Health. At the time, the company was called Diagnostics, so it went by a different name. But it was my first real job in the industry, and it was at a startup. The startup had roughly 10-ish people at that time. It was a huge move for me personally and professionally. I had never lived in the San Francisco Bay Area before, number one. Number two, Ami was pregnant with Siona, our daughter at that time, and it was also my first job in industry. So that transition between the PhD and moving into the company was a huge one. And I'm really glad I made that jump, because the learnings I got working for a startup company, I could not have gotten those same learnings working at a more traditional company, had I not been there for at least a few more years. So to get a little bit more granular, when I got there, I was afforded the opportunity to do a lot of things that I had never gotten formally trained in, and it was trial by fire. Startup world is trial by fire. And I was really happy that I got the opportunity to do that at Lucira, to run clinical trials for flu diagnostic testing, and also get involved in the business operations of the company as well. And as that might be a prevailing theme throughout this entire conversation, that just continued to help me and steer me in the right direction.
Yeah, let's talk about the next step. So Roche.
Yeah.
What was the thinking? Why did you switch?
Yeah.
And what did you learn there?
I had an incredible experience at Lucira Health, where I joined, one of the early employees, and the team grew to roughly 50 during the couple of years that I was there. So I had that experience. But what I didn't have at the time was the experience of working for a big company or a large company, and I wanted to get that experience. So truthfully, there was no reason I had to leave Lucira. Everything was going fine. It was a very secure job. Everything was great. But this opportunity opened up at Roche, and I thought, you had the 10-person experience. Why not get the 100,000-person experience? And so that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see what are the learnings from the small company, what are the learnings from the big company, and how can I blend those together to set myself up for the next stage in my career.
This is for the audience and for the podcast. So if I was the person who's in my early 20s and I had to decide between working in a big company or working in a startup, how would I decide that? What characteristics are suited for big companies? Like what personality traits are suited for startups?
Sure.
How do I decide that?
I want to preface this by saying that there's no wrong decision. I know many people in their early 20s tear their hair out. Do I go work for a startup? Do I go work for an established company? And the advice I would say is it doesn't matter, because you can always pivot. You could always change what you're doing. And so I want to remove the tension out of the decision, number one. But to answer your question, the qualities that are involved in working for a startup company are that you need to be comfortable with not being in a 9-to-5 position. It is an opportunity where you will work hard, you will work after hours, and that is just the nature of the game. Needs pop up when you don't expect them to, and you have to be ready to answer the call and do whatever it takes. I'll give you one quick example, and I think this illustrates teamwork more than anything else in startup. At Lucira, we had to get a delivery shipment out by the latest UPS drop-off time of our devices at 7:30 p.m. And I was nowhere near. I was responsible for getting all of the devices packaged in the UPS box and out the door. And I was nowhere near ready. And I was fumbling through this at 4:30, 5 p.m. But come 5:30 p.m., the entire team came beside me and said, hey, where are the boxes? Where are the shipping labels? Where's the packing tape? Let's go. And so between that time, everyone got on board and was able to help me out, and we got the shipment out the door just as the delivery truck was leaving. That is the kind of mentality that you should have by working in a startup. It is fun, it is challenging, and it is exhausting. So that is that area, but the learnings are incredible. Moving to the big company side of things, you learn about processes. And what I mean by that is that you learn how to move things up a food chain, and you can get better at it each time that you do it. Whereas in a startup company, if you want to implement a certain change, you can usually get it done in a day by signing off with the superior or something like that. In a larger company, that change might take time. And there's a reason for that, because sometimes the changes that are implemented aren't the best in the world. So learning about processes was very important to me. And also about the people as well. I'm really happy that the people at the startup and the people at the big Roche, they were all wonderful people, but they're very different. The people that I encountered at Roche generally had been there for 15, 20 years. And they were the kindest, nicest people, and they love what they do. And to me, it just signaled that they liked working in that environment, which is great. So I think that also one component I wanted to add, there generally was not a ton of after hours working for Roche. So generally when I came home, and I don't mean to blanket statement this, because I'm sure if there's anyone listening to this that's working at a large, they're like, hey, I'm working at 7:30. It happens.
Like Amazon.
Yeah, sure. I'm not that familiar with big tech necessarily, but at the end of the day, most people were able to put down their work by 5 or 5:30 for the most part, and able to come home and be with their friends, family, whoever they cared for. And there generally wasn't much to do until the next morning. So the timing difference definitely set those two apart. So all told, working in a big company, working in a startup, both are awesome. Both are very different. And I do recommend that people have the experience of working with both, because I think that would provide them a holistic perspective on what it takes to be in a corporate industrial biotech job.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a very good advice. And obviously, I think you closed it very well that you should experience both for sure. So you already talked about your education history, and one thing we haven't talked about is your MBA from the time I knew you.
Yeah.
And Harvard itself asks you in application process, like, why do you want to do an MBA? And especially when they see 3 degrees on your certification already, like, why do you want to do that?
Yeah. So to me, it was about putting together all the experiences that I had in academics, in industry, and wanting to make an even bigger impact. And to me, what that would mean was building out my own biotechnology company. And I frankly didn't know how that would manifest itself prior to coming to HBS, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So my application focused around how do I take the training that I have gotten throughout the years and pair that with whatever the business school could offer and allow me to make the biggest impact possible in the world. So that is why I wanted to come to HBS.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. This is like a little bit more nuanced question. I'm asking this because if you're from an Indian household, it's not your decision to do something. Like it has to be taken care of in terms of like, you talk to your parents, you talk to your wife. CNO was already there. RO was probably on the way.
Yeah. So
how did those discussions go? Were they like another grad school? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So in terms of that, it wasn't so much that it was about another degree. Ami was fully supportive of me doing an MBA program. To me, actually, the difference was I'd already entered my mid-30s by that point. Do I continue working full-time at Roche and do an executive MBA? Or do I take 2 years off of my career and do a full-time MBA? So that was actually the crux of the decision. And Ami was fully supportive either way, but I think the thing that she said that really stuck with me the most was our daughter, Fiona, at that time was only 3, so she was young, and she was pregnant with our son at that time. And she said, the kids are young. Why don't you take 2 years right now and set yourself up for what could be a game-changing MBA for yourself. And this will be a payoff for 15, 30 years at the end of the day. So absolutely involved full buy-in from her, but it was actually her that pushed me to make this decision. I was the one, frankly, I was like, I don't want to give up my time with you and the kids to do this. And I'm comfortable in a sense working full-time, doing executive MBA, working with this mid-late career professionals all sounded kind of standard to me. But she was one I was like, no, take a risk. It's fine. And the time, so I applied. We lived in the Bay Area. I was working at Roche. I was really fortunate to get into 2 of the top programs in the country, HBS and Stanford GSB. And I effectively did a coin flip because both were obviously incredible programs. And
you couldn't get wrong.
Yeah.
You couldn't go wrong. Yeah.
I couldn't go wrong either way. And I came to HBS. So at the end of the day, the decision was not about whether to pursue an MBA. It was in what manner to do it, because I knew that I had a lot of skills. I had industry experience, but I didn't have A, formal business knowledge, and B, I didn't have a world-class network. And that is what an HBS MBA allowed me to get.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you also mentioned that this is not in terms of like next 2 years or 3 years. This is about like next 15 to 30 years. This is what I tell people who I mentor for like HBS admissions.
Yeah.
So this is like a long-term thing. So I totally agree with you. Let's switch gears. The most important part of your professional career is being the CEO of Lime Therapeutics.
Yeah.
So when did you know you were going to start Lime, and what needed to happen that you do stay on the track to start Lime?
So how I came about the opportunity was just by circumstance. And I'm not BSing you. It just came about by circumstance. And between the fall term of the first semester at the business school and the spring semester, everyone here, including yourself, was on a winter break of some kind. And so for me, I was scrolling through the HBS Healthcare Club WhatsApp group, and somebody posted about some online networking event taking place in January. And I thought, okay, I'm not doing anything at home. This sounds kind of cool. So this was an event put on by Pillar VC, a venture capital firm in Boston. And the event was designed to bring together aspiring life sciences entrepreneurs. And I thought, that's kind of cool. Let me attend the event. And I attended the event not really knowing what to expect, and I just wanted to meet some great people. I had an inkling in the back of my mind, as I talked about earlier with the HBS admissions essay, that I want to start something, but I hadn't found an idea yet. But through this program, people kept telling me that, hey, you have to meet this one scientist who's developing something really cool in cancer. And I said, okay, I'll meet him. This was all over Slack and Zoom. There was no in-person networking, so that presented some additional challenge as well. And apparently what I also learned later was that a lot of people were telling my eventual co-founders the same thing about me. Like, hey, you got to meet this guy Shardule. He's doing his MBA. He's looking to form a business. You two would make a dynamic team. So I messaged him, and I thought, and his name is Prakrith, and I said, hey, I've heard a lot about what you're doing. Let's talk about this. And so
And he became the CTO?
Yes. So
Okay.
yes, exactly. So we had a quick conversation where we immediately aligned, and I wasn't looking to bust his brain and be like, I need to come in to be the CEO. That wasn't my immediate. I just wanted to find the next groundbreaking idea and see how could I be involved in it. But he had the notion that, hey, look, I developed the technology and I don't want to deal with any of the business stuff. Like, you have experience team building, you've done this before. You may not have been a founder before, but you've done this. You leave all that stuff. You do all that stuff. I'll handle all the tech. And I think we'll make a great team. And that's really how it's manifested itself. So how I got the idea, it wasn't being a CEO overnight. That wasn't part of the plan. It was more find a great idea, find how you are going to contribute to it and make it big. And that's what we've tried to do so far.
That's a good story, and that's how a lot of things happen through circumstances.
Yeah, so this whole thing started by me checking a WhatsApp message, literally.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think fortune favors the brave. You heard about it. Like, if you're not looking for opportunities, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You were looking for messages like that.
Yeah.
So that's good. I know you started talking about you already raised a seed round, I think.
Yes.
And you're looking into raising a Series A.
Correct.
And biotech Series A are big rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But fundraising is not the only part of being a CEO.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the challenges of the CEO.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question to you is that what is the one thing you thought was going to be extremely easy as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, and turned out to be really hard?
So I frankly thought that fundraising would be a little bit easier. I wouldn't say that I would have thought it was extremely easy, but I had a little bit of naivete coming into this whole process. I plainly thought that with this incredible idea, with my pedigree, with the pedigree of my co-founder, that fundraising would be easier and that people who we are seeking money from would understand that we have great technology, a huge market, a team to execute. That should be the magic sauce, right? But that's not the case. Turns out that everyone is looking for something different. Every investor is looking for, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you come back to me in a little bit? Can you keep me on the sidelines for right now? So that is the one thing that turned out to be a little bit more challenging than I anticipated. But what I've done is I've worked through that. I have refined the story about what we're doing at Lime. And it also has allowed me to align with the right kind of investors for our vision. So I'm really thrilled that we've raised the seed round that we've raised so far. And it's taken a lot of work to do that. And that has probably been the biggest learning that I've had so far.
That's awesome, yeah. And let's quickly comment on, I know a lot of people are looking to fundraise for their startup.
Yeah.
A lot of them have technical SaaS-based application or software. How is biotech venture capital different from typical SaaS venture capital?
It comes down to the time horizon of the investment. Whoever goes into biotech investment at a seed stage, sometimes I have a call with an angel investor who has never done biotech, and I present my idea in the most layman terms possible. But at the end, they'll talk about, what's your 3-year revenue path or your EBITDA plan. And I'm thinking, this is not the right kind of person that understands that this is different than a SaaS model as you're referring to. So number one, it comes down to the time horizon in that people who are looking to make a return should think about 5, 7, 10 years or so. Creating a cancer drug does not happen overnight. It does not happen on $10,000 of a single check. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, but the reward in society and the monetary reward pays off. So I think that is what the biggest difference is. The capital requirements are also different, where experiments take time. You want to bring on great people. So that also is a little bit different as well.
Okay. Next question for you is you are gearing up to hire people.
Yeah.
And you probably have hired a few people, part-time roles at least. What has been your hiring philosophy and how is it going to evolve?
Yeah. So going back to what I was commenting earlier on with Lucira, we're looking to bring on people that have what I call startup energy. And that is the main fundamental that I'm thinking about, is that they have to, of course, be technically qualified. That's kind of the barrier in a sense. But aside from that, they should not be looking for a strict 9-to-5 position. And that is because, as I mentioned earlier, things change. Things are moving. Every hire at this stage of the game is so key, so clutch. So I want to make sure that they are bought into the vision of the company. But to me, I also want to balance that in a sense where they understand that I, as a CEO, care for them as a person not just a professional. And I want them to maybe use an overused term, bring their whole self to work. I truly believe in that, because if you aren't able to really be yourself, then you can't do good work. It kind of goes both ways. So to me, my early hiring philosophy is get people on board who are interested in exciting, challenging, fun opportunity. Get people on board who have startup energy. And third, get people on board who really want to bring their whole selves to work.
Yeah, I have one more question on your life as a CEO, and maybe a couple more actually. So when I messaged you about appearing on this podcast, and first thing you said was, yes, I'm coming. Second thing you say about, I'm stuck with Silicon Valley Bank. Give me some time. So what was going on there, and how did you handle that? I mean, obviously I was following it up, but you were in the middle of the action. So yeah, what happened?
So interestingly, the day that everything occurred, which was on a Thursday, I don't forget the exact date, I was reading news. I was getting a lot of WhatsApp messages and text messages from fellow founders, investors in my company. So I was diligently monitoring the situation. And it was the Wild West out there. Nobody had seen this kind of a bank run in a long time. And a bank run specifically for Silicon Valley Bank, where, to be clear, all of our funds were Silicon Valley Bank, 100% of them. And to take a step back for a second, when I think about the risks of a biotech company, where I do banking did not fall anywhere in the top 50 risks. I was thinking about, if does my trial fail, and can I get the regulatory approval, all that stuff. Where I banked did not fall anywhere in that radar. And so that was just a fun curveball. But to get back into it, the day that it happened, I took action and said, I would want to make sure that Lime is protected. So I made the decision to withdraw all of the funds and transfer them out. And unfortunately, I made that decision around 3:30 p.m. Eastern by the time that everyone started heading toward their deposit accounts, and the website was frozen. The mobile app was frozen. I couldn't get in. And I kept pressing refresh for about an hour. I couldn't get in. And I was like, great, there goes all of our money at this point. I finally was able to execute the transaction and got all the money, but the next day the bank shut down. Like FDIC took over.
Yeah.
But
you got your money back.
Yeah, I got my money back. I think there's two key points here. One, I've seen this on LinkedIn, so I don't know who came up with the original idea. But at the end of the day, if someone had gone to sleep on Wednesday night and woken up on Monday morning, they literally would have known nothing happened. Because everyone woke up with their money. If they got some kind of a digital detox or whatever the case might be, they would have known nothing happened. And that was number one. Number two, I stayed in constant communication with my investors. I sent out one email update on Thursday saying that we are aware of the situation and we are monitoring minute by minute. And that actually led to a slew of responses saying, from a lot of investors of mine, saying, we're here for you, we support you, let us know what you need. And then the next day, when SVB got taken over by the FDIC, I sent another response to my investors saying, hey, this is what's going on. If FDIC does not give us any money back, we are prepared to run the company for at least another 6 months without any additional funding, like with the FDIC insured amount. So my co-founder and I were thinking about, how do we go into hibernation mode? If we lose everything above the $250,000, that's guaranteed. So all in all, it took monitoring, it took communication, and it took patience to get through what we had to go through.
No, that's very well managed. And I was talking to a few people. I was actually talking to one Silicon Valley Bank director, and he was scared about his job. So he had different thing going on. Anyway, this question is asked to a lot of female professional leaders, and it's a shame that it's not asked to males, and it's sad because gender roles should not be existing in 2023 or even 21st century.
100%.
But question to you is, how do you balance the demands of your family and personal life? How do you demand your job?
Yeah, no, first of all, I want to second what you said in that question. It either should not be asked at all or should be asked of everybody. That goes without saying. That's just wrong. It is, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. Secondly, to answer how to do it, number one, I could not do this without the support of my wife and kids. That's straight up. My goal in life is to be the best, in no particular, I'm sorry, I should say in order is to be the best husband and dad possible and the best executive possible. So that is the priority right there. I don't want to think that. But in order to achieve all of that, it takes a village. And I don't do this without sacrifices, right? So it does take time away from my family. Number one, I am encouraged that my wife is always supporting me to go on my dreams. Number two, it takes family support as well. I'm very blessed that I have extended family within the area, both from my side and from Ami's side as well. So sometimes we need to have help at the end of the day. So in terms of balancing per se, I want to take it back here because a fellow HBS grad from 2011 has a family now. He told me, never think of your life in terms of balance. You will never achieve balance. Think of it in terms of juggling. Sometimes you will have priorities which you will juggle, and sometimes you're going to drop the ball, and you're going to have to figure out how things go. So to me, balance is out, juggling is in, and people who are trying to run a family and a startup need the strongest possible support system in order for them to do everything that they want to do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with the juggling philosophy. And my Tom and BSSC professor, Alison Monakin, also talks about this juggling thing. And she describes it in a way that you have some balls made of glass. There's some balls made of like steel or rubber. I think it was rubber. So some balls bounce back if you drop them. Other balls like break, like glass ones.
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure that you can drop a few balls if you want to, which can bounce back, but don't drop the glass ones.
No, 100%. 100%. And I'm figuring out how many balls I have to juggle. And right now I will be in full transparency saying that I don't get as much sleep as I need to. I also am not in the best kind of physical shape that I would like to be in. So doing the best job I can as a family man and doing the best job I can as a startup CEO, I have let some balls drop, and I need to do a better job of figuring out how to pick those up, how to reintegrate that. And that is a constant challenge for me.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. Let's come back to, so we are almost approaching the end of this recording, and I wanted to come back to Lime again. And so it's a drug discovery platform.
Yes.
And one of the several diseases you are targeting is cancer, and cancer has like several forms.
Yeah.
Curing the cancer has been so sought after. Like everyone talks about, they want to cure cancer. There are so many prodigy kids. And this is also a very personal question to me because my mother died last year of cancer. And it was very last stage and probably misdiagnosed also. We don't know. Why is curing the cancer so hard? And what is Lime going to do about it?
Sure. Curing cancer is hard because number one, it comes from within. It's usually not a virus or a bacteria that's coming in and your body has this immune reaction to fight it. Cancer is your own body fighting itself. And it's almost philosophical in a sense, like the greatest enemy is within yourself. With cancer, that's true. And because it is within yourself, it keeps on mutating, keeps on changing. And that's one of the reasons it has been so tough to conquer, cancer is truly the enemy within. And what we're doing at Lime about that is that we are taking away cancer's ability to defend itself against cell death. And so one of the ways that we are doing this is that we are creating medicines that are number one, are specifically targeted for cancer cells. They don't target healthy cells. And number two, it takes away cancer's ability to protect itself from certain types of cell death. And what I mean by that is if you take certain parts of a cancer cell away, it will die. It won't be able to, you're lowering the shields of a cancer cell. And scientists have struggled for years to figure out how to lower some of those defense mechanisms. And we have a breakthrough way to figure out how exactly to lower the shields on cancer. And think about Star Trek or any other Star Wars or any other science fiction show. Once the shields are lowered, you can go in it and attack it really easily. So at Lime Therapeutics, we are figuring out breakthrough ways that nobody has ever done before to be able to lower cancer's defense, and we can attack it much more easily.
That makes me so much hopeful for cancer research. So thank you. We have a few minutes, and before we go, we have a fun segment and an audience question.
Awesome.
And fun segment, I have a couple of questions for you. So first is, and this may be right now you are CEO of a company, but I'm thinking when you are 25 or something, what would you pick between being rich and famous or Nobel Prize winner but dying in obscurity?
If I was 25?
Yeah.
Oh, rich and famous. Easy.
Okay. Not the Nobel Prize winner?
No.
No, okay. Why is that? I thought you would be into Nobel Prizes, no? Were you ever at any point in Nobel Prize? Like, interested? No.
No, because again, I knew that when I started with my PhD that I was not destined to be an academic scientist. And those are the creative minds, the genius minds that get Nobel Prizes. And I am going to make an impact in other ways. But through a Nobel Prize was not going to be the way to do it. If I were to take myself back to being 25, being rich and famous would give me the platform to, given these two diverse choices.
Right. Yeah.
It would give me the platform to make an impact.
Yeah. Okay. So next question I have is, if you could have dinner with any historical figure,
I love this.
who do you have and why? And living or dead, I don't care.
Yeah. I think about this answer quite a bit because there is so many choices to go after. So
Just one.
if I were to pick a historical figure to have dinner with right now, it would be President Barack Obama.
And what would you talk about?
I would want to talk about leadership. I would want to talk about facing challenges when you may not have the roadmap to tackle them. He was entering the presidency as a relatively young senator from Illinois, relatively unknown, and not having had a lot of experience. Entering during right after the 2007, crisis in the economy.
Yeah.
So the point was, how did he get together the best group of minds and solve the economic crisis and lead the nation to a few years of prosperity following after? So what I'd want to learn is, what does it take to properly manage people and expectations in uncertain times when you don't know the outcome?
Yeah.
And what are the pitfalls about these kinds of decisions?
Well, that's very insightful answer. And I always think about this question. Obama comes up many times.
It does.
This question. So I have an audience question for you.
How has your experience being a dad affected, if at all, how you and Lime Therapeutics? Thank you. If you could change anything in your life, what could it be?
Who is it?
Oh, what?
He has two questions for you, actually.
You got a 2-for-1. So, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
So that's my daughter, Siona. She is turning 6 years old very soon. When you said an audience question, I had no idea what you meant by that. But
I could come up with someone better than Sienna. I've seen your interactions with her. She asks very pointed questions. She gets angry with you for touching her water bottle and so on. So I was like, okay, I had to get Sienna for this one.
All right. Well, I'll answer this question. Siona, how has being a dad affected me at Lime? It has given me the focus and purpose I have always wanted. And I know that what I am trying to do is trying to create a better world for you and your brother Arav. That is what I take away from being a dad and trying to grow out Lime. I also wanted you both to see that being a good dad and being a good husband to your mother does not have to conflict with being an all-star business leader. That's what I aspire to be, at least. I've told you this before, but I have 3 tenets in life, and that is how I try and be a dad, and it's also how I try and treat my coworkers at Lime. 1, work as hard as you possibly can. Outwork everyone. 2, be as kind as you can to every single person you meet in your life. It doesn't matter if they're your best friend, your mother, your father. It could be a random person that you encounter on the street. Be kind to everybody. And the third thing is that besides those 2 things, do not give one hoot about what anybody else thinks about you, what you do, your life. That is all up to you. I'm so happy to blend my personal philosophy in how I'm trying to raise you and your brother with how I'm trying to grow my company at Lime. And to answer your second question, if I could change any one thing, I would aspire to do a much better job of juggling the balls that we talked about earlier in the podcast. I truly don't know I hope that the sacrifices that I am making right now are going to be worth it in the end, but I don't have a crystal ball. And so I would like to be able to change how I am taking care of myself so that I can be the best dad for you and the best husband for Ami and the best CEO possible and the best citizen in the world. So I will make a concerted effort to do a better job of taking care of myself so I can be my best for everybody out there.
That's very insightful. I'm pretty sure Sienna loves it, and I'm sure he admires you being her dad and Ara's dad. So this is great. So you said something and which reminded me of the original this and that question I had in my mind.
Okay.
Because you have had so much professional experiences and you're still an entrepreneur, so there's a lot of uncertainties coming.
Yeah.
My original question to you was see the future or change the past. But Siona came up with this question, so I'm like, okay, I can put this on shelf and ask this question instead. So I think this brings to the end of our recording, and thanks so much, Shardule. It was great having you, and you shared a lot of insights with everyone. I think it's going to be useful for people of all ages, no matter where they are with their life right now. So thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be a part of. Thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to share my personal story and my experiences. It's really an honor to be on the podcast.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.